Asha once shared a story about Swami Kriyananda's parents. Swamiji's parents were Ray and Gertrude Walters, and Ray was an oil geologist who lived in many parts of the world, and Swami also grew up in many countries. And they were particularly known for having a very harmonious marriage. Swami said he had never seen a moment of discord between his parents. And someone once asked Ray, "What is the secret? How are you always harmonious with your wife? Is it because you allow her to take all the decisions in your house?" And to which Ray responded, when I decided to marry Gertrude, I told her I'm the man of the house and I need to take all the important decisions. But ever since I decided to marry her, there have not been any important decisions to take. When I heard that story, it reminded me of my own journey and all our journeys, perhaps, of just finding my way in this world. Finding the autobiography of a yogi, all the life situations that led me there, and recognizing my teacher, my guru in Paramahansa Yogananda, and then trying to live a life of discipleship, still trying. And that's kind of how I feel. Once that decision was made, I don't even know if it's a decision, but once there was that recognition that this was mine, that I had found my teacher, every other decision seems relatively trivial. There is no more important decisions to take. From that moment on, we all try, those of us who are disciples of whoever the guru is, we all try to listen to that guidance to see what I should be doing, how I should be responding. Most of my adult life has been after I had that recognition, but still, despite all the transitions and decisions that I seemingly had to make, I like to think that there have not been any important ones except asking my guru what would be the right thing to do now, what would he want me to do. Well, that's just my thought on discipleship. It still does not answer the question, do we need a guru? Do I need a guru? Do you need a guru? It's a very tricky question to answer. It seems like a very simple answer, but honestly, I don't think it is. It's just, I don't even think it's possible to answer that question for someone else. Do you need a guru? I can say, the scriptures tell us that if you want to find God, you need a guru. And from my own experience, I consider it the greatest blessing of my life. I couldn't be happier having recognized my guru in Yogananda, but that's where it stops. We cannot answer this question for somebody else. How do I know if somebody needs a guru? How do I know where they are at? Throughout our lives, in our journey, we are always trying to take charge, be responsible, take charge of our life, take charge of our energy, grow in that way, shift patterns that are holding us back. And then gradually, slowly but surely, we reach a point where the assignment is different, where we reach the limits of that level of working with ourselves. And then now we are asked to open our hearts to let somebody else take charge for your life. And it's a huge leap of faith. It's just something that's not obvious, and the mind cannot but ask, but why should I be obedient to somebody else? Why should I ask somebody else? Why should I be in tune with someone else? Why can't they just tell me what I should be doing and then I can figure it out myself? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, because the same mind that is asking those questions is that biggest obstacle that is standing between us and our spiritual next step. We cannot get there. And then we have to open up in some way or the other to that consciousness, to that wisdom, to that love that is coming to us through a channel sent by God because we were asking for it. A week or two ago, I was having lunch with some of my friends, and we were talking about a lot of things, and I don't know what led to what, and suddenly my friend was talking about this book. It's called Something Brilliant. Maybe some of you have read this book. It's a best-selling spiritual book. It's about this man it's written by him. His name is Larry Brilliant. And she was sharing a particular story from that book. I had not read that book before, but when she shared that story, I actually vaguely remembered it because I'd heard the spiritual teacher Ram Dass share it in one of his talks, and I had heard that story not too long ago, so it was sort of synchronous in that way, or maybe a few years ago, but it sort of brought it back to my mind. And this was the story of how Larry met his guru. Now, Dr. Larry Brilliant is actually known for other things. He's considered responsible for eradicating smallpox. He was a pioneer in medicine and a lot of other things, and that's what his life story is all about and his book is. But this was the story of how he met his guru. His guru was Neem Karoli Baba, who was also, he was a holy man who lived in India, and he died many decades ago. He was also the guru of Ram Dass, who is the famous American teacher who was very popular in the 60s. And Ram Dass is sharing the story of Larry meeting Neem Karoli Baba. Larry was a doctor, he was Jewish, he lived in New York, he was successful, he had a happy life, a happy wife, and everything was going well. And his wife suddenly takes a fascination for Indian teachings, and she goes to India and she finds her guru in Neem Karoli Baba. And she wants Larry to fly to India and meet her guru. And Larry is, of course, curious. Who is this man that my wife keeps talking to me about? I want to know more. I'm curious. So Larry goes to India, and he lands in this ashram in this remote town in the foothill of the Himalayas. And then he's with Neem Karoli Baba, as he describes in his own words. There's this fat guy sitting wrapped in a blanket, and everybody's adoring him. And it just makes no sense. He's really put off from the very second he lands in the ashram. And then he says the most disturbing part for him is all these white people touching his feet constantly. And he cannot stand to look at that. And then he gives it an honest shot because he realizes how much he loves his wife and how much she loves this man, her guru. And he tries. He goes to Neem Karoli Baba over and over again. Every day while he's at the ashram, he's there. And he realizes, Maharaji, that's how he's referred to Neem Karoli Baba by all of his disciples. It just means the great king. And he was. And Maharaji does not pay any attention. He does not notice him. He does not acknowledge or talk to him. And then this goes on for a few days. And then I think by day 6 or 7, Larry is just not sure what's happening here. He's not sure he's truly out of place, and he doesn't know what to do or whether he should stay, whether he should leave. He's distraught. He starts to think one morning and he realizes, my wife is so enamored with this man. I don't make sense of any of this. It all looks so crazy to me. If that's what she wants, maybe our marriage is over. And then he gets very depressed. He takes a cab and goes to a nearby lake, and he just wants to spend the morning there. And he looks out at the lake, and then he does something that he had never done before. Larry actually starts to pray. He said, I've never considered praying in my life. And then, not a prayer as in, sitting and meditating or praying for hours, but he just asks this question into the universe. Am I crazy? Do I not see something here? Is something happening here that I should be noticing? And then he remembers this quote, this idea that for those that don't have faith, miracles are needed. And then he prays, maybe I need to see a miracle. Maybe I need to see a rainbow or something in the sky, then I'll start believing in what is happening here. And then, he takes a cab back, he goes back to the ashram. He's still looking for that answer. He doesn't know what to do, he's depressed, he's hopeless. And nothing happens, and then he decides, maybe I should just leave. I don't belong here, I cannot keep staying here. He packs his bags and he tries to take off, and before he leaves, he stops by the door of the ashram where Maharaji is. There's the fruit that had fallen on the ground, and he bends to pick that fruit. And immediately, right at that moment, Maharaji walks out of the door. Give me a second. I need a sip of water. At that point. So he puts his hand down to pick the fruit, and Maharaji walks out, and he just walks over his hand. He puts his feet right on his palm, and he almost pins him to the ground. And Larry is laying there on the ground, and he's thinking, how ludicrous is this? Finally, I'm touching his feet. And then Maharaji starts speaking to him for the very first time in these 7 days. And he starts asking, where were you this morning? I didn't see you here. And then he says, did you go to the lake? And then Larry realizes nobody knew that he had gone to the lake. This was not something he had shared with anyone. He said yes, and then, of course, there's a translator. Maharaji does not speak English. And then he keeps asking one question after another. What did you do there? Why did you go there? What were you thinking about? Did you go for fishing? Were you just sightseeing? Did you go to meditate? What were you doing? And then he just keeps talking, and Larry just realizes there's something happening inside him. He feels this rush of energy in his spine, and his body gets tense. He's so restless. He just wants to run away. He doesn't want to be in that situation. And then finally, Maharaji leans over and he whispers, were you talking to God? And then right at that moment, Larry just breaks down. Larry just breaks down into tears, and he just has this huge shift happen within him. And Maharaji keeps talking to him. He starts playing with his beard. Tell me, were you asking for a miracle? Were you asking for a sign? And I was just thinking about that story. Of course, Larry, of course, he says, give me a second, I'm still having something stuck in my throat. Larry says, from that point on, I wouldn't want anything else in the whole world except to grab Maharaji's feet. That's, of course, an interesting story that happened to one man, and he met his guru. But what does that mean to all of us? How do you develop faith? How does one become a believer from being a non-believer? There's truly just one way, which is that we are all sincerely asking for some experience of truth. We are all sincerely looking for some answer. And then the answer comes, but it's not one that we ever expected. Because the veil parts, we are constantly trying to figure out everything that we are trying to get from this world around us. And suddenly, there's something that parts open, this delusion, this plane of delusion, Maya, that's what the Hindu scriptures call it. It tears open just a little bit, and then we start to see something. This ray of light enters. And then we are touched in a way that we never knew was possible. All that we thought was light was but darkness. That's what we read in the Festival of Light. And that's really what happens. Everything that we wanted, every place where we thought we were going to find this answer, turns out to not be that way. And then we realize what we are looking for is not even in this world. It's not of this world. Somehow there has to be something that's outside that pierces into that veil, and there's this opening, even just for a moment. But then once that happens, we are touched. We are shifted in a way that we cannot go back. We cannot be the same again, because we have had that experience. It may not be an outward miracle. Of course, that story was pretty dramatic, but still, it could be just a feeling in the heart. It could just be an experience that is just so individual and personal. But that's really how that answer comes. The question, do you need a guru? There's no way to answer it. There's no place to answer it except the sanctity of our own heart. There's no other way to find it. It is a feeling. It is not an idea. I can stand here, I'm told by people that are close to me, especially in my family, that I'm very convincing in the way I argue, and I can be very passionate at times. That's actually not a compliment. They would all shun disagreeing with me on anything. So there could be a lot of philosophical arguments that could be made for why somebody needs a guru, why this might be something that you want to consider, but none of that would make any sense. None of that would actually make any difference. They would make a lot of sense, but it wouldn't really make any difference. Nobody went looking for a guru because a guy wearing white robes told them so on a Sunday morning. It just doesn't work that way. We have to ask, we have to seek, we look around and we don't find what we're looking for, and then we pray, maybe not even consciously, maybe not even in the way that Larry was asking, but just in our own hearts, we are looking for something that is true, something that is real, some kind of meaning. And then the veil parts. And the guru just cannot come and tell us. He cannot teach us by giving a lecture or sharing something that the mind can understand, because that mind is the obstacle. So the guru just tears the veil a little bit, and it doesn't make sense right in the moment. In the autobiography of a yogi, of course, it's a book on discipleship itself, the guru-disciple relationship that Yogananda had with his guru and his own spiritual seeking and everything that came after that. But really, it's a catalog of miracles. Every chapter has miracles after miracles after miracles. These saints, these masters that come to teach us, to actually guide us and show the way, they make a mockery of the physical plane. They make a mockery of all the physical laws that we take as the absolute, somehow that we are so bound by. And they walk in and they have to shake us out of that sleep. They have to wake us up to see that light behind what we think is light, behind all these veils of darkness. So you just have one saint after another. You have the levitating saint, the saint with two bodies, the sleeping saint, sleepless saint, the non-eating saint, and it just goes on and on. The saint who fights tigers with his bare hands, the saint who wouldn't appear on a photograph if he chooses not to. And then All these stories after stories. The saints don't come to tell us, to show us how they've achieved all of this, to show us how great they are, how unlike all of us that they have become, that somehow they have achieved these powers that we are supposed to adore and worship. That's not why they come. They come to show us that this world is not what it looks like. Don't take any of this as truth. I can just play with this. This is a clod of clay in my hand. I can crumble it into pieces. It makes no difference to me. I'm standing outside of this, and what you're looking for cannot be found here. You have to seek that, and I'll show you the way. And that's where the Guru comes into picture, because this is the vibration that you have to tune into. This is the ray of grace that has been sent by God, that you too can find your way in this darkness, that somehow you can see the light. In the Sanskrit language, the word Guru itself means literally that, one who takes us past the darkness, one who shows us, introduces us to the light. And that's really what the true teacher does. He pierces that veil so we can finally see, even for a moment, and then we keep seeking it and we keep pursuing it. But then we are touched, we are transformed, and we cannot go back to who we were. And we all have those experiences, like I said, whether it's outwardly miraculous or simply an experience in the heart. We have that grace that is coming to us, that is touching us constantly. Many years ago, I had a story. Since I have time, I'll share one more story. This is from my own life, but from many, many years ago. I had just graduated college, and I was just going through an intense time of seeking in my own life. I had not yet seen or recognized my guru in Yogananda at that time. I don't think I had even read the autobiography of a yogi. But I was really looking for answers. I was ashram hopping. I was going to one class after another. I was trying one technique, this technique, and then temples and this and that. I just was looking for something that rang true to my heart. And then one day I was reading the story of this great emperor who ruled I was living in this Indian city called Pune at that time. I was working there. And I was reading the story of this king who was considered very noble, very chivalrous, and I was reading his life history. I don't even know why. And he was very popular in the part of the country where I lived at that time. His name was Shivaji, if any of you are wondering. And there's a part of the story, there's his guru, his name was Ramdas too, as it happens. And I was reading about the relationship that they shared, how this guru guided this king through all the important decisions in his life, and how the king became the noble person he is because of this guru. And somehow I was more drawn to the personality of this guru. I wanted to know more. I was reading more. And then I came across this part where it said he lived in this mountain cave for many, many years. And he wrote this commentary on the scriptures. And as soon as I came to that part, I was just fascinated by phenomenon at that time. If I read something like this, there is a mountain cave, somebody had a vision, somebody meditated, the first thing I would do is book my ticket to go to this mountain cave and see for myself what's there. And so that's exactly what I did. And I wanted to go to this cave, this remote part of the country where the saint meditated, and I could just go feel it. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to just tune into him. So this was during the monsoons, and that part of the country, the western part of the country, it gets pretty crazy. It rains and pours like nowhere else. And I take a bus on a Saturday morning, and I go to this tiny little village. And of course, I probably had to take a couple of buses. I don't even remember. They dropped me somewhere, and somehow I had not quite imagined what it was going to be like. But then I land there and I realize I'm just in the middle of fields. There's nothing here. I have to find my way to this ashram and this cave now. And one thing led to another, and finally I reached this ashram. It's like 11 or 12 in the morning, but it almost feels like evening time. It's so dark because of the rain clouds. And I enter this place. There's this small little ashram where, the saint meditated around the cave. They have built it in the recent years. And it almost feels like night because there's no power. There's a power outage because it's still pouring like crazy. I'm just wearing this rain jacket. I didn't even bring any food. I thought I'll just find a restaurant or something and eat something. But it just was not there. It was so remote and rural. And I go to this cave and I meditate there. This cave itself was behind this huge waterfall. So this deafening sound of waterfall as I went in there. It was just a blissful experience. I didn't have any visions. I didn't hear any voices, but my heart was full. I was just touched, and I was just in a very, very joyful state. And then I come out, I'm hungry, but I'm not even thinking about that. It's almost like all those considerations had left my mind. And there's this man that approaches me. He says, we are serving lunch in the ashram. Would you like to have lunch with us? And I said, sure, I am very hungry and there's nothing else here. I didn't tell him that, but I was very pleased by the invitation. I had lunch and then, I was done there. There was not much else to do. It was just a dark time of the day because there was no power and it was pouring like crazy. So I thought, maybe I should head back home. I don't even know where I'm going to find an auto or a bus or something to go back to Pune. And I start traveling backwards, traveling home. There's this high mountain road. I got a bus and I was on this road that was actually going to Pune. And I think there were only 1 or 2 buses the whole day that would actually take me to my final destination. And there was this very high mountain road that this bus was crossing. And it was so magical. It was the time of the monsoons, and I was in the bus. It was so beautiful. The rain had just stopped for an hour or two. And as I was passing the road, this thought crossed my mind, this is so beautiful here. This is the most beautiful place I've seen in my life. I need to get out of the bus and spend some time here. It was a crazy idea, but somehow I was just in this blissful state, enjoying myself, and I decided that was a good idea, and I got out of the bus. I just asked the bus to stop, and I got out, and I was in the middle of nowhere on this high mountain road. It was a mountain pass, actually, that was going to go onto the other side, and I just wanted to be there. I was just walking around. I found a trail. I walked for a little bit. I had a camera with me. I took a lot of photographs. It was so beautiful. I didn't sit and meditate or anything, but I was just in a very, very uplifted state of mind. And then I come back to where the bus dropped me. And then I had to wait for another bus to go home. And then there's this tiny little chai shop in the mountains. There's nothing there. There's nobody there. There's 2 guys making chai. And then they look at me and tell me, that was the last bus to Pune. You missed that. I don't think there's any bus after this. It was only like 4 in the evening, but it had started raining again and it was totally dark. I couldn't even see anything. It was just this very high mountain road. The winds were crazy because I was so high up in the mountains. And I was just standing there. I was still very happy. I was not deflated yet. But as I kept standing there, and believe it or not, I think I was standing there for about 3 hours, just in pouring rain, right next to this chai shop, just waiting to see if any vehicle would take me. There were vehicles that passed, they didn't stop, and I was just standing there. Is there a bus? Will there be? And then the chai shop owner obviously was very kind to me. He said, don't worry about it. You can come to my village. You can stay overnight here, or you can get sleep. As tempting as that invitation was, I was so drenched, I was so dirty, my shoes and my pants, everything, they were just covered in clay, and all I wanted to do was go home, have a hot shower, and just sleep on my bed. So it was not as enticing as it may have sounded. I was standing there and waiting and waiting and waiting, and I think almost at 6:30 or 7 p.m., it had almost been 3 hours by then, there's this mini truck, this small truck, I don't know if they exist in this country, they're very common in India, that stops by to have chai in this chai shop. And as soon as the truck pulled over, I was just overwhelmed with the stench. The truck was carrying chicken, and it was loaded with live chicken. And, there was obviously chicken feces and whatever else was in the truck. They were just making this constant noise that was so annoying, and it was stinking, even as the truck was pulling near me. And then the chai shop owner, he was trying to be very nice to me. He asked the driver, hey, would you take him to this other town where he can get a bus? At this point, my joy level was completely deflated, and I was very close to being totally anxious and panicked about my situation, standing in this hill in the middle of nowhere in pouring rain. And the guy, he was very sweet. And then he immediately said, sure, I will just take him. There's a bus. There are more buses in this other town. I'll drop him there. He'll be able to find his way back home. So, there's no space in this mini truck. And I sit right next to, I almost share the driver's seat with this man who's driving this truck. And I cannot even, we didn't have masks back then. It was before the pandemic. So I didn't know how to cover my face. It was just stinking because of all the chicken in the back of the truck. But still, I was just happy that I was going to get to go home and I'll get to sleep on my bed. I was excited about that. And then this man tries to make conversation with me. He was speaking the local language. I spoke only Hindi, but still we could understand each other enough that we could hold a conversation. And I see the picture of the saint who's ashram I just visited just a few hours ago, and it's there. And then I tried to tell him, I was so delighted to see that picture. I started telling him, I was at this ashram, I was reading this book, I felt like I needed to go to this ashram, I needed to meditate there. And I took a bus from Pune. I spent my morning in the ashram. Now I'm heading back. I feel like the saint rescued me today. And I was praying to the saint, and no wonder you came, and you came. By this point, I was just so happy to be in his truck. And he looked at me and he said, of course, the saint was not going to leave you hanging there. He sent me to pick you up. I didn't know what to make of it. It was honestly like, was he joking? Was that an expression? Was it just a matter of speech? Or was it real? Did he actually feel an intuition that he had to stop by this chai shop in the middle of nowhere as he was, carrying this huge truck of chicken, and he would say yes to taking me when there was no space? I was sitting right next to the driver's seat. It almost didn't matter. It was almost like right in that moment, something pierced. And this was the most notable part, which was not something that he would have noticed, but my joy returned. Somehow my heart was full again. And I could feel that there is this hand that is guiding me, that is helping me navigate. And no matter where I am, what this world looks like, that I'm being protected. And that really is why the teachers come, why the gurus come to us. Because we ask. Of course, that is the most important point to note, that we seek. Nothing comes to us before we seek. Again, I'm reminded of this line from the Festival of Light. There are a few favorite parts of mine in that whole ritual that we do every Sunday. We'll be doing that in a few minutes. There's this line where we say, from the depths of unknowing, we cry out to thee, is there no lasting purpose to our lives? All that we thought was light was but darkness. I was thinking about that. I've thought about this before too, but it was coming to me strongly yesterday. I thought about this phrase, from the depths of unknowing. It is almost ironical because, especially where we live, in Silicon Valley, it feels like everybody knows everything. That's really how we move through the world. We feel like we know everything. We know what our problems are, what everybody else's problems are, what they should be doing, what we should and shouldn't be doing. And we have figured it all out. We figured, I don't know how to make everything from make phones that are size of this. Somebody was telling me there's a new monitor display that they're creating that actually folds like this and into this smaller piece, and then you just open it like a handkerchief. We seem to know everything. We have figured out everything. So I was thinking, from the depths of unknowing, we cry out to thee. It sounds like a dark place when you think about that phrase, from the depths of unknowing, but really it is a very beautiful place. Because this unknowing is the place when we get past that all the preconceptions that we hold, all the things that bound us, that bind us to this material plane, that mind that is so incessantly preoccupied with all our concerns, looking for things out in the world. And from there, sometimes, when we really start seeking, we touch that place, the depth of unknowing, and we ask, is there no lasting purpose? Who am I? Who are we in reality? For what end were we made? And then the answer comes. There is an answer that comes ever and again through your awakened sons. The answer comes. The answer is just that. The answer is, open your heart. Because all that you're looking for, nothing can be found here. I want to end with that beautiful image that Helen shared last week. It was so deep for me when I was thinking about it more, even after the talk, when her daughter had her first Holy Communion. She gave this picture of Jesus. This was a picture of Jesus with a lantern in his hand, standing by the door, knocking on a closed door. That's really the question. Are we going to open? Because when we ask, the answer really comes. The answer comes in the form of this ray of grace that descends, and the guru starts knocking on our door. The question is not really, do we want a guru or do we need a guru? But when that happens, will we be able to open the door? There's this beautiful quote of Ananda, I'll end with that. This was written on a piece of paper when I visited her ashram. I don't even know to what she was responding or saying this. For those that know me, I'm one with him. For the one that wants to know me, I'm ever near him. And for those that don't know me, I'm a beggar waiting at his door. That is the guru waiting for all of us. The question really is, can we open the door? Can we receive him? God bless you.